Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Midnight Texas. Another great episode of Midnight. We're like super early in the season, so it's on like the second episode, but still a really great episode, kind of building upon what the first episode kind of set up, kind of diving a little deeper into the whole situation of Midnight. A lot of stuff went down in this episode. I'm going to break things down bit by bit. One big thing is the whole situation with Bobo. Obviously, like, there's that deputy who was asking all those questions about Bobo. Like, he wouldn't really give any answers because they're like, oh, yeah, we know what's going on at midnight and stuff like that. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, the whole Fiji, like, doing that thing to the cars. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see what you saw. And so just to kind of, like, she's like, oh, thinking it's fun. The deputy, she puts him in a room full of sons of Lucifer's, and they're like, oh yeah, Pete told us for blah 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 for what happened to Aubrey, and they try and attack him, and it's like, nah, Bobo ain't no punk. Bobo kicked their asses hardcore. It's like, dude, he knows how to fight. Shouldn't be too surprised. Like, he ain't just some like regular shop owner. It's kind of pretty badass. Like, he messed him up hard, and he's like, tell Pete I didn't kill her. So it kind of blows up in the deputy's face later on because he like kind of like suspends her for it. Livingston suspends her for it, and she's like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, I might have gone a little bit far, but come on, those Midnighters, I have known since I was a little kid that they were kind of trouble. So it's kind of like that. It seems like it's going to be a basic element for this show too. It's like the prejudice of everyone from outside who fears Midnight. It's just like, you can't trust those Midnighters. They're a bunch of freaks and weirdos. As you see, there's something going on in that town. You can't pretend like there isn't. So I mean, granted, I felt bad because she ended up getting, mauled later on in the episode. And I was so thinking, like, we'll be seeing her a lot more. It's like, no, she's gone. But then immediately in my brain, I'm like, or are we going to have a situation where Manfred kind of joins forces with her? Like, should be kind of his ghost sidekick from now on. That'd be kind of cool, like, for him to have, like, a permanent ghost sidekick. But to be fair, his permanent ghost sidekick is his grandma and Zelda. So it's like, doesn't really need another one. But, because I was thinking, like, oh, we'll kind of play the whole detective angle up in this. I mean, that might not be the case. Like, that might only have been this episode. Like, for the rest, it's just, they might keep that to a certain extent, but it focuses on Midnight kind of, like, things are going down in Midnight. Midnighters, people of Midnight will handle that type of thing. So that might be something going forward. We end up learning, how the deputy ended up getting mauled is because she ended up opening the chains, because she went to Midnight kind of looking for something, she doesn't trust Midnight. She's trying to find any smoking guns against Bobo that she can, any ammo she could use against him. And it led to her getting killed, and not only killed and ripped up, even thrown up on top of a tree. Cut by the Rev himself, who is in fact a were-tiger. I was like, oh, he's a werewolf? Or the fact is, I was like, is he locking himself down there with a werewolf? I was like, nah, the fact is he's butt naked. He's a werewolf. It's like, oh, he's not a werewolf, he's a were-tiger, because he literally turns into a tiger, which is pretty sick. To anyone, if you've never actually watched True Blood, is actually something that came up in True Blood. There's not just wolves, there are other were people too. Like, Jason ended up running into like were-panthers. Like, he had a whole storyline where he crossed paths with were-panthers. So, I mean, once again, this is by the writer who wrote the Sookie Stackhouse books that True Blood is based on. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Now it kind of makes sense why he's super strong like he is, Question is, like, because even Manfred kind of asks, he's like, so if you get bit by it, and then Olivia's like, it's a pure blood thing, stupid, you're born with it. And it's like, well, and even Lemuel came in his defense, it's like, well, I mean, that's not common knowledge. It's like, it's just because Olivia really doesn't like Manfred. I mean, I'm sure, like, given enough time, she kind of warms up to everybody. But for right now, she really doesn't like Manfred. She kind of blames him because she probably looks at him as like, all this shit happened in Midnight because you came here. You kind of screwed everything. Which, I guess to a certain extent, you could say that because he helped find a gun, which led to Bobo, which led to everything kind of being the way it is. Even the situation with his house possibly being his fault. But we'll kind of get into that later on. I'm still kind of interested to kind of find out, like, what that is all about, like, being a were-tiger. Like, how did they come into existence? Was it a curse? Was it like a curse from the gods? Was it like a magical curse by like a witch or something? Pretty resilient too, because the fact is regular bullets don't slow him down, because, like, Olivia kind of put some into him, but it was just like that kept going along. They do have werewolf weaknesses, as silver bullets kind of bother him. Interestingly enough, silver actually bothers Lemuel too, because it's like, yeah, that makes me sick, but you know, if the Rev gets hit by it, it will kill him. So obviously Olivia was only going to take that shot, not because she wanted to, but it's because like the Rev wouldn't want to be a monster. He wouldn't want to have hurt anyone, so she was going to have to put him down if it meant keeping people safe. But Lemuel stepped in and fought him, which was pretty sick. And we also got a little bit of a taste of what vampires are capable of. I mean, granted, we got a taste of it last week's episode too, but it's like superhuman strength, super fast speed. I always love that about vampires too, the whole like super fast speed. I think it's either True Blood or The Vampire Diaries. I think True Blood came out first, didn't it? Was kind of the first example of that. I don't really remember like that ever really. Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember what the first vampire movie I ever really saw was. Was it Blade? I don't know. I'm kind of randomly going off book here. I apologize. But it's like, that's always a cool thing that I feel like has become a more modernized thing with vampires, of them being like, kind of being able to kind of like run really fast like that. I feel like that's only like a more recent, more modern take on vampires that are like that. But nevertheless, it's pretty wild seeing him wrestling a tiger like that. That's pretty crazy. But luckily, doing the whole drain thing, we kind of got to look at him being like, oh yeah, find an alternative to helping the Rev. I also appreciate how it looks when the Rev transforms back, because he takes on a humanoid form, but he still has the skin of a tiger, and then it kind of like wind blew and kind of, it was like his skin was like being peeled off. I thought that just kind of a cool effect on how that looked when he transformed. So it's like to be a full moon type of thing. And also going back to it, that's what the whole dead animal things are about. Now we kind of got a quick explanation like why he collects dead animals like that. It's like because he needs a stockpile. So it's like if he has food laying in wait for him, it's a lot easier to like, you know, keep himself calm during full moon, so he's less likely to try and break out. I mean, granted, the basement doors were closed and chained up anyway, but still it'd probably keep him a lot calmer and like less hungry and less agitated. So if the deputy had never gone down there, who's to say what would have really went down? We've also got a little bit more look at what Manfred can do when it comes to spirits, of getting possessed. He ended up being able to see what Aubrey saw. The fact is that like her last moments, and not even just the last moments, like he could actually, you know, see and feel the things that she remembered. Like even to the point, like obviously like she had her whole, like she wanted to tell Bobo the truth, but she was kind of scared, because we ended up finding out later on that she was like, yeah, Pete wanted her to get close to him for whatever reason. It must be some secret of Bobo's that they're after. What exactly? I don't know. But she fell in love with him, but she was afraid to tell him the truth about her actually being married and the whole situation behind them being together. But he felt that, and also like when it came to her dying, like he started drowning himself. So, and that's kind of something we never actually got to see in this episode, like was like closure for that whole situation. After that possession, we never saw her again. So I don't know whether she moved on. I mean, Fiji, like she cleaned the house, kind of took it upon herself and everything, kind of showing you like her magic. She had a whole setup where it's like, yeah, you can be possessed, but I can't, you know, my magic kind of protects me and whatnot. So, but we never really saw Aubrey after that. So either she moved on, or because the house is clear, it's no longer a thing. I don't know. You feel like when there's a kind of a ghost situation going on, kind of Frightener style, that there might be a bright light that someone goes to. That's what, you know, you would expect something like that. Turns out not to be the case. I mean, because also it's like, I mean, it makes sense with his grandma, because I was about to say, why wouldn't his grandma have moved on by now? She's been dead for like a year, but it's like his grandma's worried about him. So probably until this whole Hightower situation is dealt with, she's not going to leave because she's concerned about him. I do appreciate that even as a ghost, she's smoking. It's almost like, I don't know, she just seems like such a stoner, just being like, well, what are you doing with your great grandmother's? Okay, wow, whatever. Not really being too concerned, just focusing on her pipe and everything, so... I guess because that was kind of a big thing too. It's like, you know, open up to people, tell them your whole deal, you know, because it's like, yeah, me and you, we were a thing, you know, we had each other, but it's like, now I'm gone, I die. It's like you have to find other people. You can't just live the rest of your life alone. And that's kind of something that kind of resonates with the Rev too, because it's like, as a tiger, tigers are very isolated creatures, but humans, they need that connection. They need to be around people. So for him, it's a struggle between, in his words, the duality, which is kind of an interesting thing aspect of seeing someone kind of struggle with that. Like, as in werewolf stories, I feel like you don't really see that too often, that struggle of duality. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of like werewolf stories where you focus on that, but I feel like in this particular circumstance, you don't really see that too often. Like, some people just accept that wild beast side of themselves and just learn how to either control it or just fear it, which for him, he fears it, but at the same time, I think he's trying to understand it, like what it means to be what he is. I mean, granted, like, they're very rare, and it seems like were-tiger, so it does make you wonder, like, where's his whole family situation? Like, is his family gone? Did they kill? Like, what's up? Now, going back to it, the whole clearing his house thing, it went well mostly, got rid of most of the spirits except for the thing that's red and under the floorboard. Fiji had a devil's trap, and it started bleeding. It's like, okay, whatever this thing is like some super powerful demonic thing. And it like blew Manfred out of the house because it's like, I want you. But at first, Manfred couldn't actually hear it. Only Fiji could. And then, like, looking in the mirror, because the mirror, like, he can see into that world, but he can't 100% cross the veil. He can see things that are teetering between both realms. So he actually saw into the other realm through the mirror. So that's the only way Fiji could see the spirits. Obviously, like, seeing spirits is something only Manfred can do. I mean, obviously, people in his family, too. I mean, because he ended up talking about it, like, later on. I think he was talking to, was it Creek or was it Fiji? I think it might have been Fiji. It was Fiji he was talking to about the fact is that his grandma told him that some of, like, his great ancestors actually, like, fought demons and stuff, like, way back in the day in England. I mean, Europe in general. But whatever this thing is, it wants Fiji. I can only assume it's because of her magical powers, because she has, like... Because Manfred, yeah, he can see both realms. He's kind of steps in between both worlds, but I think Fiji has, like, power over... Like, full power over both realms. She can channel stuff from that realm as well as a realm of the living, so she's very powerful in this sense. So the thing has taken an interest in her, but luckily for Manfred, he used his ancestor skull, and the bright light kind of fought it away, but the skull kind of turned to dust afterwards, so that kind of sucks, you know. Makes you wonder what other kind of, like, that's kind of like a powerful magical item. So I thought at first he was going to get Lemuel, but then it's like, in retrospect, it's like, well, what would Lemuel kind of be able to do? I mean, it's kind of a spirit, and even a vampire, even with his whole, like, draining ability, I don't think you'd be able to really do anything with that. But I mean, we'll just, I don't know. But even then, at the end of the episode, it's still shown that nope, it's still got a grip on Fiji because the voice is still resonating. So it's like, what? I can only assume that's the reason why it wants her, just because of her magic power. I mean, we saw last week's episode, like, what she can do, what she did to a police car when she really got pissed. So, I mean, I guess that might even be them kind of referencing the fact is that amongst the supernatural things and people in town, she is literally the most powerful one. Could arguably be the case. But there's a lot of things kind of leaving from this episode, that the whole Aubrey situation, we still don't know exactly who it is that killed her. The person who killed her, as, like, you know, Manfred saw, had a full skull mask, but when we go to Pete later on, because he blows up Livingston's car, whether he's dead or not, I don't know. Once again, it's like, man, you're killing off that. Like, I guess that might not be an element at all, because I was wondering about that too, because it's like his deputy's dead and everything, but she's suspended, so he wouldn't know to go looking for her. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe next time we'll find out that Livingston's actually still alive and kicking and everything. So maybe that won't be an issue. Maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe Manfred will be haunted by both of them. Don't 100% know how this whole haunting thing works. I would assume it's like, oh, you're haunted by people who have unfinished business, obviously. It's kind of the go-to ghost thing, so. I don't know, like, Pete didn't seem like he had a full mask, so it's like, begs the question, like, it's like, oh, you let Bobo go, so that's why he did that. So it's either because he does still believe Bobo is the one that killed Aubrey, which obviously Bobo's thinking that, I don't think he thinks Pete did it, because Pete sent so many people after him because he thinks Bobo did it. So it's like, someone did it, but until they find out the truth, even Bobo's like, I can't move on. So obviously there's going to be still trouble heading their way, because it's like, so I'm thinking even he didn't do it. So the question is, who did it? Was it someone disguised as a son of Lucifer trying to, like... But the person who did it was someone that Aubrey would know. Not unless she was actually playing Pete too. Not unless he actually is a killer, and that was just kind of referencing the fact is that maybe he didn't have his mask on him at the time. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he only had, like, that bottom skull bandana aspect, or maybe... I don't know. We'll just kind of have to wait and see on that. Like, it does seem like the whole Aubrey murder thing. It seems like it's not going to be like the main plot, but at least it seems like a big part of it's obviously it's got a lot to do with Midnight because it drew a lot of attention their way. Granted, that's dying down now because of everything that's happening. Granted, like I said, the whole deputy being dead thing, we're not sure like the ramifications for that, but it's definitely going to be a big part of Bobo's story, trying to figure out still trying to figure out who killed her and everything. And also, we end up learning from Joe that, well, for one, we ended up finding out Joe's actually very old because apparently, like, the reason why things are going wonky, because even Manfred's like, maybe I'm the one that let this, like, demonic thing in because it's like me trying to talk to Aubrey and, you know, the veil being thin here, maybe I kind of brought it into this world, but it's like, no, because even the Reverend's like, yeah, something's off here, I don't know what it is, like, you know, normally like a shot would have been enough to kind of bring him down before, but it's like, no, he was just kind of amped up. So Joe kind of explains like the veil is getting thinner and thinner, and the fact is, like, I'm wondering what he is exactly for him to, like, I mean, he has wings and everything, but it's like, I thought he was just kind of a bird dude, but I mean, maybe that plays a role in him, because apparently he's like at the very least 1,000 years old, because he talked about he was around when the veil originally broke before, and it basically turned into like a battle of good versus evil, and he's basically saying that Manfred will have to be at the center of it, like it's some like large mural painting, and he's like, this will be the future, like at midnight, but there will be a guy led by visions who, you know, visions of the living and the dead, you know, of both worlds, who will like lead the army of good versus this army. And it's like, oh, you think it's Manfred? It's like, it must be him. So, and one of the things we saw, it looks like it's the thing that is coming after Fiji. We kind of got like a better picture of it. What it is exactly, whether it's like Lucifer type of monster, whether it's something just a powerful ass demon, I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of interesting because this show is very much like, it's kind of True Blood meets Constantine. In my mind, that's kind of that's how I'm looking at it. It's just kind of interesting. I'm curious to see what other supernaturals kind of exist in town. Like those tend to be the main one, but this is just amongst the main cast of crew. Some humans obviously mixed in, like Olivia and Bobo, who obviously have their secrets because we still don't know anything about Olivia's whole dad situation. Don't even know anything about this Hightower that's out after Manfred. But like, what about the individual people in town? Like, it's kind of like, I guess another thing to kind of compare it to would be Haven in the sense of like Weird Town. I mean, that's kind of the go-to story for any good story, but it's like in Haven, it wasn't just the main characters who were inflicted or troubled. There were regular people, and they kind of were the day-to-day basis on the show. So I'm curious, will there be other people in town that like, oh, we have to deal with their supernatural issues or not? I mean, I love this. I mean, I'm very much in love with the show. Already liking it a lot. I already said that last week. Continuing so this week. So I'm very interested to see what goes down in next week's episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.